Welcome back, everybody, to Satisfactionist Live. I am your host, Ben Olmos, and tonight we have another interesting, what I hope to be fun, dynamic, creative conversation that is going to be going on. Joining me today for this exploration into big tech and big tech alternatives, and just maybe even a general conversation about all the crazy crap that's going on in the world today is Mr. Isa. Ciao. Isa, how are you, sir?
I'm good. How are you doing, Ben?
I'm doing really well. So we are kind of at this interesting crossroads, I guess you would say, right now. And, there's a lot of people asking questions, a lot of people wondering about, um, you know, what are maybe some alternatives to some of the things, platforms and technologies that are out there right now. And um, I want to, before we kick off on this, I want to make one thing very clear as we think about this. Um, First of all, 100% what happened this week, um, uh, over this past week, um, it was absolutely terrible. I personally, and people may feel differently than myself, and that's fine. Everybody has a right to their opinion. But it was an absolute shit show. Should have never happened. A huge amount of responsibility, I think, falls on the organizers and people who put this together, who got people riled up, to ultimately deface one of the if we're not talking in religious terms, one of the most sacred institutions of our country, which is our Capitol building. And it was just absolutely terrible, to say the least. And so, as we talk about this, I am not talking about alternative platforms because I think there's a place that people should go to now kind of huddle and continue on with this insane crap. But rather because this is something that has been out there for a while, and it's been out there from the sense of people not feeling comfortable with their personal information and their privacy being exchanged for dollars on the internet. And those dollars being raked in by big mega tech companies who are now, kind of shaping. Arguments go a couple ways. Isa and I will talk about this, but who are now kind of shaping things and points of view and all that other stuff. It's kind of using what we know about behavioral psychology to the absolute worst in the terms of profitability and manipulation and all kinds of stuff. And so, are there places that we can go that are different, that are going to restore a little bit of freedom, a little bit of choice, a little bit of sanity from all of this stuff? Also, I do want to mention too, 100% think Twitter is in their right to do this. Is not censorship in my view, because they are a private company. They have every right in the world to do what they are doing, as does Google, as does Amazon. But we, as consumers, have the choice to determine whether or not we're going to put our business in the hands of folks, uh, that we do business with today. And so that's kind of where I wanted to start with this. And Isa, I've given you like zero chance to say anything. So with all of that, let me turn it over to you for a second and just kind of, you know, um, get your thoughts. And by the way, we talked about this just before we went live, but I want Isa had the best comment in his Facebook thread, which is he said, "This is like Bastille Day for idiots."
So I just want to, reflecting on the past week, I just think it's so sad. I mean, it's sad in a number of ways. As a comedian of sorts, I would say that it's sad that I don't know if this story is even true, but it doesn't matter. it's sad that someone may have tased themselves in the balls to death, and we can't even think that's funny because of how ridiculous this whole situation is. So that's like a level of sadness. But
I
on
haven't
a more
heard that. So
serious,
that's out there in the ether, huh?
that is apparently someone died of a heart attack, and apparently they were storing a taser in their pants. Now, I don't know how you confirm a story like this, but apparently that is what
That's the
happened.
rumor.
So I choose to believe that this is what happened. It might be an alternative fact, but I'm okay with that. No, but on a more serious note, I just think of all the reasons that people could ever have to storm a Capitol, or the Capitol, maybe like let's just pretend that this was like radical environmentalists or something, and they were storming the Capitol to protest the signing of some, Arctic drilling thing or something. And it got horribly out of hand and 5 people died. And you would say, oh my God, that's terrible. I can't believe this happened. It's awful. And at some level you'd be like, well, at least they had their heart in the right place. If their heads were up their asses, whatever, at least their heart was in the right place. This happened over just straight up lies, that anyone could easily confirm to be a lie, with the
Yeah,
slightest bit of
like somehow
critical
the
thinking and
outcome was
reason.
going to change, and these folks were out there to kind of be witness to that change happening.
Yeah, I mean, and I guess a lot's gonna come out as we go. I mean, I'm sure some percentage of people were just there to kind of see what happened and got caught up in the moment, but some people probably had much more sinister intentions. So
Sure.
I'm sure it'll all come out. The FBI is very good at investigating these things,
Yeah,
and
it's kind of their job.
yeah. So and actually, I think it's great. The FBI is taking white supremacists seriously for once, so that's good. Good for them. Um, but I don't know if there was a question there originally, but just
No, 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 no. I mean, I appreciate your thoughts on it, and I mean, really, what I want to kind of segue into is, you and I have talked a little bit. I think we kind of feel the same when we think about technology and big technology, and kind of the overshadowing of our lives that these companies have on us. And whether, I mean, it used to be even maybe you would say, well, I can escape, at least I can go to like a Whole Foods, but now Amazon owns them.
right,
And it just seems that there's this continuous momentum of these large companies kind of swallowing up every angle of doing business at scale, um, to the point where, in a situation like Parlor, and I don't know all the details of Parlor. I will say that before all of this crazy stuff, and I'm an early adopter of technologies and softwares and things for the most part. So, when it comes to social media, I go out there and whenever I hear of something that is trending or new, I always jump on just to see what it's all about. Like I had a TikTok account for, a year, I got into it, looked at it, and then I put it away, and then it blew up, and now I'm kind of back into it.
right. You're not quite the demographic for TikTok. I think my
I am
12-year-old
not
is the demographic.
demographic, clearly not. But there's a lot of funny stuff on there. But it's entertaining, and I engage in things because I want to know, I want to be informed. And so, I was on Parlor. Now, for me as a user, when I was on it, I never really saw anything, but for the most part, it leaned very conservative. Um,
I've heard.
Most conservative publications and conservative voices were on Parlor. You didn't see a lot of other folks there, and for the reasons that Parlor got shut down, I never saw anything like that. But then again, I mean, you could look at my phone app, time, and it wasn't one of the top things I use. So,
Right.
um, you know, from the information that's coming out, I can see why, folks like Amazon took the stance that they did. It's angered a lot of people because they kind of feel like, oh, you're shutting down our voice. I think anytime you're leveraging a platform to do something nefarious or even influence something that's nefarious, actions need to be taken. What puzzles me is the double standard. I do think that there's, you could find many examples of other things that have been put out there that have, that haven't been addressed or not as addressed to this extent. But then again, you know, being trying to be objective and equitable, we've also never had anything that really rallied people enough up to do what was done. So
Yeah. Well, I have to. I feel like full disclosure here. I have to explain that I don't really believe in the American idea of free speech in the way that most Americans throw around the term. Like I'm just to give a quick example, like in Germany, for instance, it's illegal to have Nazi stuff. Like you can't fly a swastika, you can't do Nazi stuff. I mean, people still do
do
Nazi stuff, they
Nazi
just can't
stuff.
call it Nazi stuff, right? Whatever the Nazis do, you just can't do that.
So like,
So I'm
Euro
cool with
Trip,
it,
the scene in Euro Trip with that would never fly.
Yeah, no, you can't. So like that's a perfect example. Just the flag. We'll just talk about that to keep it simple.
Yep.
You can't put a swastika flag up in Germany. I'm totally cool with that. Like someone might be like, "Oh, but it's a slippery slope on free speech." I'm like, "No, it's not. It's just Nazis." Like I'm totally fine with, and I understand that you can get into the details and say like, "Well, who decides who the Nazis are?" I'm like, "Well, it's pretty easy. You always know who the
See the
Nazis are.
flag?
That's never a problem."
Yeah.
So I'm not, so I'm not, I'm never going to be one who is like, oh no, we should all be able to say whatever we want all the time. Like I think it's perfectly fine to put restrictions on things. So I'm, yay Amazon and all those companies for finally doing something. It's not exactly a profile in courage in the last 5 minutes of the Trump presidency, but still, it's good.
I guess when I think about though that and there's elements of that I agree with. I tend to hold a little bit of a different view, which is people can say whatever the hell they want to say, but we have also the right to respond to that however the hell we want to. And so
Absolutely.
that's why I say, if you're Google or your Twitter and everything else, and you do something, and somebody basically it becomes a very bad customer for your business, by all means, you have every right to eject them out of your business.
Sure.
That's just how we are now. When speech gets to the point of harming people, that's where I get like you, like something needs to be done. And, I tend to want people to be kind of moved into the mindset that this isn't appropriate. This isn't how you operate in a structured society. And these things should not be allowed. Um, but I struggle with whether or not, like, do we ban, do we silence, do we censor? Because historically we've done that to a lot of people who turned out to be. Now this is terrible. I shouldn't even say that because it's completely out of context. I was going to say who turned out to be right, but in this case, I don't see that. I'm thinking
Yeah.
like Copernicus and
Yeah. Right. Sure. Sure.
but people who had scientific discoveries, things like that. And I guess in a small sense, that's what I do fear is that do we get so caught up in um, curtailing speech that we get to a point where we say, um, you know, you go further than that, and you start shutting down people. Like I don't like it for religious reasons, and I don't like it for political reasons. And so that's
Sure.
that's my kind of inner struggle is that I never quite know where we're going to draw the line. And
Yeah, I
that's
know.
what
I
worries me.
understand, and I think I would say that somewhere between my version and your version, you got plenty of good space to have a healthy
I
debate,
think
and
so.
then there's a
Yeah.
bunch of other people that are crazy. So, you know, I feel like we maybe straddle the bounds of reasonable on both sides, and then there are people with much stronger opinions that don't that I don't give much credit to.
Right, right. No, and that's the challenge, because I can 100% respect what you're saying, and there's a part of me that's like, yeah, no, I get that, and there the reality is that there are some things that are so atrocious that they should be eliminated. And
Yeah, no, exactly, and they need, and when, and racism and sexism and certain things are especially a little different from some other things, just because they've had the force of law behind them for so long that you almost need a government solution to the problem.
right,
You uh, I'm trying to think of an example that is less. The problem with the what a broad statement, but the problem with the Trump situation is it's not even like a policy discussion. You know what I
no,
mean? Like there's no, you're not arguing
it's
with someone about
it's a humanity behavioral thing.
yeah, exactly, exactly. So how do you deal with that? You know what I mean? Like in the yeah, I'm a big science fiction fan, and there's always the story of the intergenerational spaceship where you want to launch like a slow sublight spaceship to another star, and it's going to be like 100-year journey. So the grandchildren of the current residents will be the ones that actually show up at the new star. And it's kind of a classic trope in science fiction. And there's always the question of like, can you let Mormons come with you? Because they'll have more children than they're supposed to. Not to pick on Mormons specifically. There was a time when Catholics did that too. But it's the kind of, that's the kind of thing where it's like this pure thought experiment. Whereas in real life, problems are never that clear cut.
No,
Usually,
no, they're
yeah,
not, and that's why we're have this kind of complex thing, and I have some uh, very conservative friends who will hear what I have to say about this, and will be like, Ben, you're an idiot, and I'm fine. I mean,
and you are my conservative friend. Like you are my most conservative friend by far.
but even at that, I kind of feel like I'm center right, but in situations like this, I'm it's embarrassing. It's my wife and I were having a discussion about this, and I said, how this for me, how this feels is, people growing up Mexican American. I have, heard the comments and the slander and all the other kind of bad things, and I'm kind of what they call the Oreo Mexican, because I'm very white on the inside, but even still, right, at first glance, that doesn't come across, and so I mean, you hear things and you grow up hearing things, and there are times when you'll see something, a portrayal or somebody do something, and you kind of hang your head and you go, damn it, like you just did what everybody expected you to do,
Right.
because you just became the stereotype, and that's a
Yeah.
little bit how I feel about all this. It's like all those folks just became the stereotype.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's true.
and and it's just like, like, damn, but not and again, not because I was like pro any of that junk that was going on, but just like, you fell right into it, and like, what kind of credibility? I mean, even Mitch McConnell is like signaling that this ain't cool.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's one of those things. I'm not giving Mitch any credit because it's been 4 years, but
I wouldn't expect
it's
you
clear.
to.
My thinking, and this has to be what McConnell and a lot of other Republicans are thinking, is from now on, any violence is going to be linked directly to Trump. So if some terrorist crap goes down at the inauguration or even after the inauguration, the blame is going squarely on Trump, just like it did for this
Yeah.
Capitol thing, especially now that Trump is unrepentant. So I think they realize, like, if something really bad were to happen and they're all responsible for it, they can't have that. That's too politically risky. And so I think and they probably hate him also. You know what I mean? Like I'm sure I mean, we all know they all hate him. Like from Ted Cruz to Lindsey Graham to Mitch McConnell, they all, when he was running for president, told us how they felt about him.
Right.
So they've been swallowing that because he's been popular for the past 4 years. But the old saying, like, if everyone's waiting to stab him or kick him on the way down after he kicked them on the way, whatever the saying is.
Sure.
Edit that and make me sound smarter. But yeah, so I again, these aren't
the term the Russians have is useful idiot.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
And I don't,
we just need them to sign legislation, right?
It was yeah. So I mean, it's gonna be absolutely crazy. I'm hoping for a smoother transition. It's as an American, I am a bit bummed out the fact that for many years we've had peaceful transitions, and this is the least peaceful, least humane transition.
And it wasn't even a close election. That's what's so crazy. Like it wasn't that close.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that folks are out there, and I get it. There are people who have tried to make the argument that states had election practices that allowed for a bunch of votes to be cast that weren't valid. We've presented that. We've tried. People have tried to make that case in a court of law, and the courts are basically saying no. Like,
right.
This, this isn't substantive enough. This
I mean, as if it wasn't ridiculous enough. A lot of these states have Republican administrations, so
exactly.
It's just there's no conspiracy here. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, well, and that's completely ridiculous. Living here in Georgia. I mean, even our I'm forgetting his name, but organization that oversees the ballot process here. I mean, it is a Republican-ran open, and even here they couldn't gain any traction. So,
yeah, if California had gone to Trump, we'd be a little suspicious, but I mean, like, yeah. What else can you say? But let's talk about the topic at hand.
Yeah, exactly. I know we spent a lot of time not talking about this. So, alternative platforms. So, first of all, let's kind of chip away at this a little bit, and we'll start with social media, because if there ever was a tool that robs our privacy, it would be social media.
Yeah.
Because we've decided to chronicle our lives in software that gets written to the cloud.
When we were growing up, the big fear was that the government would like plant listening devices and keep track of what we were doing. And now we just do it for them, or do it for everyone. It's really fun how that's changed.
It's true. And we've actually, we freely do that.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And I remember at one point you were like, whatever. I'm getting off Facebook and I'm starting my own social media software.
I did. I created a Facebook killer. I built the social media site to end all social media sites, and it was great. I really enjoyed using it myself. I got like.
Did the social part of it ever take off?
Well, so the site was called. It was a social media replacement site, and if you take the first two letters of all of that, it stands for it's summaries. So it was called Summaries, social media replacement site, and I built it, and I got about a dozen of my close friends to use it. And the idea was it was supposed to just be for your close friends. It's not for your boss. It's not for your coworkers. It's for the people that you talk to on a weekly basis. Like the people that you're very close to. And it was great. It was really fun to just share stories with a smaller group and not have it be public. It didn't last a long time. It was supposed to be kind of ephemeral. You have your conversation and then you're done. You don't go back to it. People used it, and then we had some fun on it, and then everyone was like, well, everyone's on Facebook, so I'm just going to use Facebook. So that was pretty much the beginning and the end. And that's pretty much how all the thousands and thousands of social media sites that aren't Facebook have gone. aside from Instagram, which of course Facebook bought, and they're probably TikTok and a few others that have broken through the noise. But for the most part, the network effect prevents anyone from launching a new social media site.
And so when you say network effect, what
And that just means that everyone wants to use it because everyone's using it.
right.
So if Facebook had 3 users, it would be a completely useless app. It's really only good because everyone is on it. So something that you could do, there are a lot of little apps that do things better than Facebook does them. Like if I want to send an email to someone, Messenger isn't better than a million other ways I could do that.
WhatsApp,
But
whatever.
right, or whatever. Yeah, I'm already on Messenger, and so are they. So it becomes an easy way to reach out. So it's that across everything. It's the best. It's the easiest place to post, to find people, to do whatever. So that puts them so far ahead of any competition that you really have to get lucky, or have some specific angle. And Parler's angle was, we don't censor. That was their main. I think they tried to build themselves as privacy oriented, but apparently their tech was not very well built for privacy. I read a breakdown of their tech, and a hacker downloaded 80 terabytes of data, pretty much all the Parler data, to turn over to law enforcement. And it was even stuff that had been deleted. They didn't actually delete it. They just flagged it as deleted, so they wouldn't show it to their users, but it was still
It
there.
still
So
resided in the database.
yeah, so all the content has been snagged off of. So it definitely was not very privacy oriented. But I think that was one of the selling points. The main one was that they didn't censor. So if you wanted to say your crazy conspiracy theory, you could do it on Parler without being banned or downvoted or whatever method there is.
I'm kind of one when it comes to conspiracy theories. I mean, they're kind of fun to listen to for me. Like I enjoy listening to conspiracy theories, but the kind that are like there's a spaceship behind the moon conspiracy theories, not we're
Sure.
gonna drag you out of your home and beat you to death. Like those I'm not too keen on.
Yeah, for real. So so that was their hook. And I guess they'll be, Instagram's hook was that it's just pictures. Vine or TikTok is that it's just videos, short videos. And I'm sure there'll be others, but it's hard for new people to break in, especially because, I mean, this is why a lot of people feel that Facebook's purchase of Instagram should have been blocked, as a antitrust or what, not antitrust, but anti-monopoly move or whatever.
Yeah, but we leave that up to people who have no idea what the hell they're evaluating.
Yeah, right. Sure. I mean, the hearings in Congress whenever the tech companies are there are just so painful.
Yeah, yeah, no kidding. One site that I've been looking into, and again, like I download all these things just to kind of jump into them and see what they're about. But one that is very intriguing to me is a site called Minds.com, and I'm not sure if you've checked it out yet or not.
I've never heard of it, actually.
So they have this really interesting kind of Bitcoin reward system, in that you can buy coins, and then you can use those coins to upvote sites that you like, and those sites that collect this Bitcoin can then ultimately turn it into cash. And if you are if you're a content creator, it's a place where you can put content out there and actually kind of earn their own Bitcoin for it, that you can ultimately then kind of convert into some real dollars.
Oh, okay, that sounds a lot like some other companies I'm familiar with. There's a company called Coil that does that. They do sort of, it's sort of like pay by the second internet usage. So everyone pays a subscription fee, and then every time you visit a site with a browser that has the plugin enabled, it counts how much time you spend on a site and sends that much money to you out of everyone's subscription. So it's sort of I explained it very poorly, but
No, but yeah, I mean there's elements of that that are kind of similar to the way that Minds work. So,
Right.
and I've actually kind of thought about that. Like, I may try some satisfactionist content on there and see what happens. Of course, that just means they will hate this episode. At least some people will, and then they'll call for my head, and then I'll
Yeah,
have to deal with
sure.
that.
Yeah, but then some other company will ban that speech, so it'll be fine.
Hopefully, hopefully it'll come in time. Um, there's
But if you wanted to, for instance, boycott, it's tough because you can't really boycott Amazon, for example. Amazon is everywhere. You might not order from them for deliveries, you might not watch any movies or anything on their service. But if you use the internet, you're definitely using their servers, whether you know it or not.
apps
Uh,
apps you're using that are hosted on
yeah,
S3.
yeah, absolutely, 100%. I mean, they really did some really groundbreaking breaking stuff with cloud computing, and they're the leader in that industry, and you can't avoid them. So yeah, so it's hard to find. There are movements out there. So there was a time on the web when everyone had their own website, right? You'd have yourname.com, and you could build whatever you want on there, and it could be good, it could be terrible, it didn't matter, but it was like you owned all that content, you controlled it. And then at some point, that gave way to just platforms where you give them all your data and they give you some service in return. And there is a big movement out there. I guess I shouldn't call it a big movement, but there is a movement out there to try to return to that old days of the web where you do own your own content.
I could punch the monkey again.
Punch the monkey. What was that?
So don't you remember the banner ad with the monkey that would scroll back and
Oh
forth, and you'd have to try and punch the monkey?
wow, that is a blast from the past. So
um,
yeah, so and the real problem with most of the web stuff that we've been talking about is just that it's all ad driven. So Facebook does all sorts of horrible things to you because they want the ad revenue. So they want to make it as sticky as possible. They want to make you engage with it as much as possible, and it's literally like psychological warfare. And it's kind of crazy.
yeah, I mean, when movies out there like The Social Dilemma, which a Netflix movie, you guys haven't checked it out, you should definitely check it out. And that, quite honestly, you'll watch it. You'll be, if you've never been exposed to exactly how deep these companies run and the kinds of things that they do to, like they made it very theatrical, the kind of behavioral exploitation that apps and phones have, but there's they're presenting it in a way that like uh, people who might not have very complex thinking, I guess, I don't know, we'll grasp onto it. I'm not trying to throw anyone under the bus or say anything bad about people, but they do it in a very simple way. They make it entertaining, and and you just kind of realize, I mean, that's in a higher level way, that is how these things work. You know, they're behavioral sciences that are built into the phones and the software and the applications that call your attention to these things.
Yeah.
And I mean, and this goes even to Facebook. And one of the things that is interesting, and this is what Facebook always says, is like, we only present to you the things that you have a tendency to want to see.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, what does that say?
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, it's it's really weird too. Facebook, it's interesting because when Facebook, there was a time when Facebook was much more. You saw what your friends posted and you saw it in like chronological order, and it was like pretty simple. And then they, tuned the algorithm more and more to try to get people to engage more, and it became to me less interesting and less useful of a site. But I try to think of things like a little as like a moment in time. So if you think longer, there was a time, 30, 40 years ago when we all got our news from the same, everyone in the country got our news from the same source. We all watched Walter Cronkite or
The same
Dan
local
Brown.
paper, the same local
Yeah, exactly.
television.
Exactly. Maybe you had two local papers, depending on where you grew up. Maybe one was a little bit weird and one was a little more mainstream. But you know, you you basically all had the same news. Now there were you know there was less news to be had. You know, there
But
was one
there
newspaper.
was also more journalism then
Yeah, absolutely,
versus
absolutely.
this kind of op-ed news today. I mean,
Yeah,
when's the last time you saw a news story where there was some level of investigation, some level of a reporter interviewing somebody, like some journalism, like you know,
yeah.
asking questions and exploring those questions? It's usually, I've got a topic, let's put a talking head on. Hey, wait a minute, this sounds familiar. But
That does sound.
no, but like, let's have a topic. Let's get two people who have opposing points of view, give them each 15
Right.
seconds, and then move on to the next thing. That's not
Yeah, no, I
news.
mean, yeah, the you know, an old news show was like, okay, this happened and then this happened and this happened, you know. And now, you know, the joke is the news used to tell us what happened and you decided what to think about it. Now the news tells you what to think and you decide what happened. You know,
Yeah.
I told that badly, but that's the idea. But no, but so there used to be this like one source of news for all practical purposes, and we all agreed on that that was the news. And then it sort of became this like I think it started with like right wing talk radio. That was sort of the first main thing that kind of broke out. Like there were people that listened to Rush Limbaugh, and there were people that did not listen to Rush Limbaugh, and
Listen
they
to Howard
started.
Stern, maybe.
Yeah, yeah, maybe, or no, I didn't listen to any radio, but if you listen to Rush Limbaugh, you got a very different view of the world than if you didn't
Well,
listen to him.
you got one person's point of view and one person's analysis, and you know, you can be interesting and you can have a point of view, but you also have to realize as a listener that that's not the end of the story. One person's good opinion or bad opinion, depending on where you fall on Rush Limbaugh, um, doesn't mean that's the story. It just means that, hey, you've been introduced to something. Now go find more. Go
Well, but
read
my
more. Go learn more.
it was more of the first big example I can think of like a filter on the news.
Yeah,
You know, like you would get if you got all your news from Rush Limbaugh, you were not getting a very complete picture of the news,
yeah.
and that was sort of the you know the roots of this alternative facts movement. You know, and then as we got different 24-hour news networks that just had to fill the air with talking heads, and then we got, you know, we got multiple ones. So it was like, here's the conservative one, here's the liberal one.
Well,
And it just,
and, you know,
you know,
in fairness, and by the way, I mean, I'm a person who, you know, I've listened to Rush, but then again, I also love Howard Stern. So where do I fall on the spectrum? Um,
sure.
but but uh, but you know, then came in Rupert Murdoch, and
Mhm.
you know, when you think about it, like Fox News became very popular because they took that Rush Limbaugh formula and they put it into the news network form. And,
Yeah, absolutely.
you know, people started using that as kind of, you know, I mean, and again, you know, are there shows on Fox News that are a little bit more kind of newsy? Sure. But the popular shows are all, you know, talking heads. It's
Yeah,
people with
right.
a single point of view. And it's no more than 5 minutes and then on to the next story.
Yeah,
That's not news.
yeah. The I forgot what was the name of the movie that came out recently about Fox. I forget what it was called.
Bombshell was one of them.
Bombshell. Yes, that was a really interesting movie. I assume it's somewhat accurate. You know, I
You
would
know,
assume there'd be a
I
lawsuit if it wasn't. So,
I
oh,
couldn't get through like a half hour of it. Like I literally was just like,
I loved it. I thought it was great. It was really interesting.
but then
But just like
again, you know, I've heard the story and I'm trying to remember, and I apologize that I can't recall her name, but the main character who brought the whole suit to, in the first place. Um,
was it Carlson or was it someone else?
uh,
I can't saw the movie a long time ago.
no, I can't remember her name, and
I
I
saw it in a
apologize.
movie theater, so it was pre-pandemic, which is crazy. I can't even remember those times.
but I'd actually heard her story on a podcast, and yeah, I mean, it was as crazy as all of the other stories that were coming out at that time. And that aside, because unfortunately that kind of activity and that kind of mental approach to the workplace has not only been there, it's been in a lot of places.
Oh,
um,
absolutely. I didn't even mean that aspect of it. I was the line that really stuck out to me was like, there's a employee explaining how Fox works to a new employee, and she just says, imagine a story that will scare your grandmother and make your grandfather angry. That's how you play it, and that pretty much sums it up. I mean, I watch Fox News every once in a while to just kind of get a feel for what it's like, and that sums it up perfectly. Every time I've turned it on, it's pretty much been that.
well, and it's
So,
funny because what you hear is you hear the exact opposite for on the conservative side. Like, they'll turn on CNN, they feel exactly how you do about Fox.
which is really weird because CNN isn't. There is no like equivalent of Fox. I mean, even MSNBC is like they're not like they're just pushing like a centrist agenda. They're not like particularly left leaning. You know what I mean?
Wow.
Like I've never heard them talk about like I've never heard them talking about like nationalizing anything or like taking money from the rich or anything. You know what I mean? Like the most as radical as MSNBC gets is like we should have national health care. That's not very radical at all. So
Well, but
whereas Fox is
however,
about far right as you go without
a
straight.
business professor's point of view, it can be challenging. I think there's definitely some angles to that. I think you're right. Humanity wise, we need to find a solution. Um, Business wise, I don't think the solution we have is nearly there, and I don't think we double down on how bad the current solution is. I think we need to find a different solution, but still address the big problem at hand, which is people need healthcare. And
Oh,
I'm
I
not
agree
saying I
with
have an
them.
answer to that. I don't know what the hell the answer is. It's
Yeah,
complicated.
I mean, honestly, the healthcare thing is so simple to solve. It could be solved. In,
That's what
it
I
could
love
be
about
solved.
you. Everything is
Well,
always a simple solution.
Well, it is a simple solution, and it's got one problem, right? The problem is that no one wants to go against the money, the entrenched money interests of the American system. I mean, it is an easy solution because every other freaking country manages to do it, and all we would really have to say
Hey,
is, "Hey, let's
hey, Issa,
copy."
I just got a question for you though.
Okay.
I agree with you. I think
Yeah,
money is a big driver.
yeah.
Who came up with the vaccine first?
A German company. Which one are we considering first?
Well, I mean, where
Pfizer.
where
Pfizer.
are we? What are we doing? I think a lot of the money that helped to create where the vaccine came from the fact that we have that is as effed up as the system is. It's also the one that raced to the solution and had the resources to do that.
But Ben, I don't think that's true. None of the vaccine that are the Pfizer Moderna vaccine. I don't know where those companies are
It
from.
came
But
from America.
the BioNTech's like a German company,
That's American.
and
America, we're number
whatever.
one. We did it.
Yeah, USA. Yeah, no, but I mean, like seriously, like we could solve the healthcare problem by just saying, let's copy Japan's system, let's copy Germany's system, let's copy Sweden's system. Like that's all. It's not a mystery as to how you provide healthcare to people. I mean, even much poorer countries in the U.S. do it.
Well, and
With
let me also kind of clarify what I was saying there, too, because you're right. It wasn't only America. It wasn't like Independence Day where the solution came from America.
Yeah,
Um,
right. Yeah, I'm googling where
I always
whatever.
I always love that part of that movie. By the way, it's like everybody was waiting on America to figure out how to beat the aliens. Um, but no, what I'm saying though is that this big money driven capitalistic system that was created in healthcare.
They're
Um,
German. BioNTech is German. The
okay,
first one. people. So,
Um, and it was a
that's
global effort. I'm not trying to
of
say that
course.
it wasn't, but I also think that there are mechanisms in the way that we do things here that enabled that to happen so quickly. And maybe shit, maybe I'm completely wrong. I'm completely open to that fact, but um, uh, counterpoint. The counterpoint would be, um, well, maybe what I say has some merit to it. But if that's true, then why are we so slow in getting it out to everyone and other countries are kind of, getting ready to lap us?
Yeah, well, it's because we don't have a national strategy.
Well,
We've
there's
made the
that
same
too.
Yeah, we've made the same mistake every time, which is, like, okay, let's let the states just do it themselves and get PPE, and then let's let the states do it themselves and get the vaccine out. You got to have a national strategy. Just, I mean, whatever. I think America's got so many broken problems that it's hard to just nail down one. But health not having like national health care is definitely one of the biggest problems that America has. But whatever, regardless. Uh,
we're back to big tech.
yeah,
Um,
back to big
I
tech,
knew this would happen, but that's okay.
yeah,
Um,
whatever. It's all connected, man.
so but other social media platforms that are out there, so Parler got shut down. Here's a few that are in the webosphere that people are talking about. I have no experience with any of these other ones, but I've heard of gab.com, which is actually web.
That's supposed to be another right wing site. That I read an article about them because a bunch of Nazis were going there because they were taken down. So
Well, again,
that's all I know.
I did preface this with saying I tried to do a little research before we got on here, and
So if any Nazis are listening, you'll want to go to gab.com.
um, so yeah, but it's website driven. It's not app driven. So you're not going to download an app on your phone. You got to go to the website. Another one. Now these are like I've not heard of any of these, and maybe you have. And these are also Nazi sites. So who knows? I don't know. But .win forums. I've never been to a
Nope.
.win forum. Sounds like
Yeah.
4chan. Um,
Yeah.
and Ruckus with two Q's, RUQQUS. Uh,
I've not heard of.
Another one. So YouTube. So another big thing is getting banned and shadow banned on YouTube. There's a lot of folks who have complained about that, and so two platforms for video that are that I'm starting to see a lot out there. So BitChute is one. I have not been to BitChute. Don't know
I'm
anything
not
about it. Rumble is another one. Uh, Rum-
also.
Rumble I have heard of. I think to your point, so that too is a little bit more right leaning.
I mean, like, look, the bottom line is the main driver for a lot of these social media sites is that people can't stay within the community norms of the mainstream sites, and so they go find their own site, and that's a really weird commentary on our country, But
Like you are too radical for the mainstream. You need to go
yeah,
to
but
a fringe app or site to.
it's like I cannot possibly just say nice things about people online, so I'm going to go to my own site.
Well,
Like just stop saying bad things about people.
I mean, of all of the very pragmatic and simple things that you boil things down to, I think you just hit the nail on the head. Just stop
Totally.
saying stupid things about people.
Yeah, well, I think I think clearly we've discovered that humans are just very bad at pseudo anonymity. Like if you feel like you're removed from a person, you will say all sorts of crap that you wouldn't say in real life to their face.
Right.
Like, and I think that just gets so amplified on the internet, and again, it's you have to think of it as like a moment in time, like we won't always be at this place in technology where we send these like asynchronous messages back and forth on various platforms. At some point it'll just be virtual reality, and you'll be jacked into some computer program, and you'll just be in a room with some people. And then do we get back to like normal social politeness? Maybe, I don't know. But I think it's all new territory, and it will continue to be for a long time.
Yeah, and I mean, the reality is, and this kind of going back to the kind of the behavioral science of all this, we've never really been wired for this much.
Totally.
It's like we are the first, like 100 years from now, or maybe even more, people are going to look back at what we are doing right now, and we're like in this opium den of information where we're just all just kind of like smoked out of our brains, laying around on information cots going, wow, man, this is so much.
Well, I mean, it's interesting because there's gonna be a lot more information in the future, and just how we deal with that is going to be interesting for sure. Whatever happens, it'll definitely be interesting.
I mean, to your point about like having, Oculus is Zuckerberg's next level kind of social network that
Right.
you're kind of touching on there, which is, we put on goggles and headphones and we escape to somewhere different, and then uh, there's still the cold pizza on the coffee table when we take the headset off.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's definitely going to be. It's like I mean, we've definitely our age group has had a very interesting experience because we had the almost computer free childhood, and then we had computers introduced, and then we've seen it all come up. Whereas if people born before us or after us really didn't get the same experience, so it's been, we picked an interesting time to be born for sure.
Right.
Good
Yeah, no, it certainly has, and like I said, I mean, we're gonna continue to change and evolve. A couple things, and we're gonna wrap up and get out of here because I know you've got a hard stop coming up.
I
Um,
do.
but you know, messaging platforms. Um, you know, right now, WhatsApp, Skype, Facebook Messenger, all very convenient, by the way. There are others out there. I mean, there's a ton of messaging apps out there. You know, my route kind of feedback to everybody is always uh, operate in life like you're in front of a live mic at all times. Um,
Yeah, that's just how it is.
yeah, just like pretend there's always a camera on, and what you're saying is being broadcast out to millions. And if that alone doesn't kind of bring you back, then it should.
Yeah, I always feel the way, and then people tell me I'm a megalomaniac, so I don't know.
But when it comes to mail, out of curiosity, because my business mail goes through Gmail. Why? Because it's convenient and it integrates. Um,
Yeah,
but I have seen some people promoting things like Proton Mail. It's a paid mail service. It's encrypted. It's private. They don't scrape your information and try and sell you stuff. I don't know. What are your thoughts on?
you know, personally, I've never ever bought anything from an ad, and so I just ignore ads. I've never felt one way or the other about ads. I literally just ignore them, and that's just been no problem for me. So it's not, I don't use an ad blocker online. I don't. I just tune it out. I don't know why I have that skill, but apparently I've never even seen an ad.
I'm with you. Yeah.
So I've never been particularly concerned with people using my data for advertising or anything. I think to me it's one of those things. It's like you know I don't drink alcohol. I don't think that they should advertise alcohol to children. I'm concerned
Seems
that
reasonable.
yeah, that seems reasonable. But it doesn't affect me
Wait a
personally
minute.
to
Are you
see.
censoring me against advertising to children?
Exactly. But no, so like I've obviously seen a million beer commercials watching sporting events on TV, and I just tune them out. It doesn't matter. But I think on a societal level, you do realize that all these ads for alcohol do have an effect on people, especially young people. And so it's sort of like I can recognize something as a bad thing, even if it doesn't bother me personally. And I feel that that's a good argument against things like, Gmail reading your mail or Facebook reading your posts and then advertising stuff at you. It is really weird. I mean, I think the web user experience would be way better if we could get away from this ad driven, advertising driven model of revenue. This is something that my tech friends talk about all the time. There are various potential solutions out there, none of which have made a dent in advertising. Um, but I don't know that there is an easy solution here. I think this is just going to be growing pains for a long time to come as we figure out what happens next.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess at the end of the day, I mean, there's like for a little bit now, and I don't know that I love the experience, but I've been using DuckDuckGo as my web search on my phone. So whenever I look something up, it goes through that instead of Google. Um, but it's kind of like, so I used to work with Coca-Cola, and for me, it's kind of like buying generic soda. Um, it's it's just not as nice as the name brand. It's I'm at this point I'm drinking Dr. Thunder and I don't know that I like it. And
Yeah, I mean, a search engine's a search engine. It probably doesn't make that big a difference, but I mean, I'm okay with. I don't know. I feel like we should have more radical opinions to make this sound more exciting, but I'm totally fine with people knowing, with Google being able to advertise to me based on what I Google. Who cares, right?
well, I think where and and I've kind of marinated on this a little bit, and I have to say, like, initially, um and what people need to know about me is I don't like big government, and I don't like big companies, and like when anything gets too big that it shapes the way things have to happen, I don't appreciate it. And
Okay.
it doesn't mean now I know I just said I worked for Coca-Cola, and by the way, I was there for 20 years. um
Yeah,
so so
but you were bringing it down from the inside,
but now I don't like it.
right?
No, the but when big whatever, big pharma, big tech, big soda, big whatever, big restaurant capitalizes on the way that something is done in such a way that it limits choice, and it constrains competition. I don't like that because I think when there's competition, things get better. Um, and when we eliminate competition, and by the way, even in politics, we are in a duopoly when it comes to politics. There are no entrepreneurs in politics. And if you are an entrepreneur,
Well,
um, it's
Donald Trump is pretty much the one political entrepreneur. Definitely not, didn't belong to any party.
he,
Totally blew
no,
the system.
but he took one on. He took
Yeah,
he took one on to label himself, and
yeah,
by the way, they also took him. So,
yes,
uh,
kicking and screaming for some of them, but they took him.
but they took him, right, and they had the opportunity to say no, no, no. You got to be an independent, right?
Yeah,
Like
right.
there's got to be some, but he didn't. But
Yeah,
but
I
that's
mean,
what I'm
talk
saying
about
is
like,
like even he had to go wrap himself in a brand in order
yeah,
to
true.
promote what he was trying to do. And
Yeah,
and
that's
and that's what when we talk about limited choice, limited options, those are things that I don't enjoy. And so, I do have this love hate relationship with big tech. I do like the convenience, the integration. I like the fact that it kind of knows what I want sometimes. But then at the
mhm.
other hand, I'm like, damn it! Like I don't want to like it.
Right. Well, I mean, so another example of my like moment in time thing is like, imagine the future, right? I don't know how long this is going to take, probably less time than we think. But like when digital personal assistants have gotten better, like call it a couple more generations after Siri or Alexa or whatever, like think about how different that is going to be. Like now you have this like really smart digital assistant that really knows what you want, you know?
Right.
That's gonna be a very different experience, like something humans haven't really had before. And then on top of that, you're gonna have that thing whispering in your ear your whole freaking life, like again, to go back to science fiction, it kind of becomes like this like lifelong personalized best digital friend. It's really, I think there are a lot of interesting possibilities there,
Yeah, and
and
and that
it's going to be.
that kind of here's the challenge with that, and this is where you and I, like, we grew up in these two worlds. So one of the reasons I think Gen Xers are a little bit edgy is because we always had somebody there telling us that we were, like, oh, that's messed up, like, that's stupid, you're an idiot, like, well, maybe you didn't, but I had people in, like, my...
More than other generations.
But here's the thing: when you have a built-in digital yes man, that is really going to f with your sensibility, your ability to contrast the difference between what's good for you versus what's good for society. Because as
Yeah.
long as you have that little thing in your ear that is constantly telling you, regardless of how much a failure or an idiot you are, that you're okay, that's that's not going to be good for anybody.
Yeah, no, it's definitely going to be interesting. I mean, and talking about like,
That's what people are trying to say about millennials and iGen. They're like, "Oh, you guys are participation trophies, and that's why you're so soft and snowflake, all that other stuff." I mean, uh, by the way, I mean, as Gen Xers, we also have to reconcile the fact that we're responsible for some of those millennials.
yeah, sure, sure.
Some of them came from us.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. No, it's definitely interesting, and I think the way that generations relate to each other is going to become more and more challenging. I think, like, it used to be that your life was, go back a couple hundred years, your life was pretty much like your parents' life. If you go back 1,000 years, your life was exactly like your parents' life. And now the accelerating rate of change is just exponentially getting faster and faster and faster. Someone wrote a fascinating article, or many people have written similar articles, but I can't remember who. I wish I could give credit, but like, if you took someone from 100 years ago and dropped them into today, they'd be like, okay, that's kind of crazy. Okay, you have airplanes, you've been to the moon, you have computers, you have all sorts of stuff. They know what a car was, they know what a city looked like, whatever. But if you took someone from 150 years ago and brought them here to today, they would have no idea what they were looking at.
Yeah.
Like, everything would be magic, and that's kind of crazy. Like, because if you took someone from 1,000 years ago and brought them to 150 years ago, some stuff would be interesting, but it wouldn't be as conceptually mind blowing as everything now. So the point being, the pace of change is accelerating,
Yeah, I
which
mean,
is crazy.
1875 was much different than 1975.
Yes.
But 2020, you can kind of extrapolate it out from 1920.
Yeah. Right.
Like, the most interesting thing, and this is why I always love watching old sci-fi like Star Trek.
Yeah.
Um, you know, I don't know, they kind of had networked computers, but kind of, but not really. Like the
Yeah.
things that we have on the internet, they didn't even think about that stuff.
Or even in the later Star Treks, like in the Next Generation, or even Voyager, or what are the later years, they didn't have so there were some really obvious things they missed. Like, they didn't have the concept of like mobile video. So it'd be like they talk to each other on a screen. Like, they had this concept of like, visual communication, but then it would be like, yeah, I'll get right down to engineering. And then the captain would like go walk down to engineering to go do something. Whereas like it wasn't just like, here, let me show you what's going on here.
That's true. They could talk. They could talk to on the screen. They could talk to someone on another ship, but they would never
Right.
talk to someone within their own ship.
Right. Totally. So it's funny how, I mean, some things were, like communicators in the original Star Trek series were very close to what cell phones ended up being. So they got a lot of stuff right. So I've always, science fiction is always been fascinating to me for that reason, just what they get right and what they don't. So we will see.
Yeah, this is why it's always fun to watch the Star Trek, the Twilight Zone marathons at the New Year. My favorite one is always about them being in 1985 and the guys who are like clutching onto their gold, to their last breath, and then people are like, "Oh, we can make gold now. What are they doing?"
Yeah,
And they go off in their 1985 car.
yeah, like 2021 is the year Mad Max takes place, right? So,
Well, maybe.
yeah, we already passed Blade Runner, and there are a bunch of. It's always fun when you get to the year that futuristic movies were made in and see how they did.
That is true, um, because we're not going backward.
Yeah.
um,
Anyway, so big tech, blah blah blah. There you go. Not many options.
Back to the Future 2, kind of right.
Yeah.
Biff is gone.
Yeah.
Um, anyway, well, Issa, thank you so much for jumping on and talking about this. I always love. I knew you would be fun to have this conversation with.
Always a good time.
Because yeah, no, it's fun. It's interesting. I love that I'm your only conservative friend.
I didn't say you're my only conservative friend, just my most conservative friend.
That's crazy because I mean I don't feel like I'm hugely to the right, but yeah.
Well, I have more of a global friend base, so maybe I'm a little biased, but like, um, yeah,
we
I don't
we
know.
did meet at a time when I was listening to shows like Rush Limbaugh. So
Yeah, you were the person that introduced me to Rush Limbaugh. I mean, not literally introduced me, but I'd never heard of Rush Limbaugh when you were like, "Hey, there's this guy, Rush Limbaugh."
and well, like I said though, like and because we were in Atlanta, and Atlanta being the kind of city that it was in the '90s, we didn't get Howard Stern down here.
Uh-huh.
And so my first introduction to Howard Stern was through like Sirius radio, and then I was like, "Oh my god, I love Howard Stern." So that's the kind
Yeah,
of
I
person I
never.
am, is that I can equally like both forms of entertainment.
Right. Yeah, I was never a Howard Stern listener, but I had friends who when I was kids who listened to him, and I was never. I like music. I would like sit around and listen to the radio for music. So I was never a talk radio kind of guy. But
Well,
fair enough.
I did a lot of jobs where I drove around a lot, and it was either books on tape, talk radio, because you can only listen to so much music, and then it's like, because remember, we only had CDs and tapes. We didn't have
Yeah.
Spotify with 12 million songs on it, so
Oh,
eventually you ran out of things to listen to.
yeah. No, that makes sense. That makes sense. Those are the days.
I also listened to things like the Bible Answer Man. So
I don't even know what that is.
you should check it out. Paul Harvey? You got to know Paul Harvey.
I've heard the name. I don't know that I know who Paul Harvey is, though.
um,
I know Paul Harvey. Yeah, I know who Paul Harvey is. Okay.
yeah. So anyway, but no, it's always fun catching up and seeing what the latest is. Folks, as we wrap this up for Satisfactionist listeners. By the way, Isa, I'm wearing my Satisfactionist Live T-shirt, which,
Oh man, you're the guy that wore his own shirt to his own
of
podcast.
course, it's called marketing and promotion, my friend.
Yeah,
And
I hear you.
and by the way, I'm on this bandwagon to create more content and different content besides just sitting in this little room here. And so this is all, in an effort to build up the resources to do more of that stuff. Um, but anyways, so folks, I appreciate you guys checking us out and tuning into this episode. I know we called it big tech. We talked about a lot of things that weren't always big tech, but I appreciate you guys hanging out and hanging in and listening to us. If you want to check out current, past, what's coming up episodes, go check out satisfactionist.com. You can look at the show page. You'll see all of our performer stuff there. And you can also take a look at the merch shop. And if you see some garb that you're interested in, pick some up. A little bit of that comes back to us, and it just helps me make better stuff for you guys. So that's about it. You guys have a good one, and we will catch you later. Good.